Is this right here?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's a little past 10:30, but we had a couple of things we had to get worked out, and we were waiting on some legal to get here, and thank you for being here. Another committee across the hall got held up a little bit, so we're just making the best we can with what we've got, right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Representative Darby. Representative Fritz. Chairman Grills.
Here.
Representative Holsey. Representative Jones. Representative Reedy. Representative Shaw. Representative Todd. Representative Travis. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Kyle. Representative Hosey, would you lead us in the prayer and the pledge? If everyone would, please stand.
Let's pray. Father, thank you for another day, and thank you for your grace and your mercy and your long suffering and your gentleness and your goodness. And thank you for these folks that are here. Please give us wisdom and insight and discernment, things we need to know and see. Please bless today in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With that being said, are there any personal orders this morning? Representative Jones, before you can be recognized, you have a pin on your lapel that has to be removed according to House rules.
Okay.
Okay. Representative Jones, you're recognized.
Thank you. I just removed my pin saying that we should not support school choice vouchers. And with that being said, I would like to welcome some of our amazing Nashville public school educators who are on the front lines of our education system. Christina Brumlevy, Lainey Carnes, Melinda Winningham, Kenneth Martin, Deirdre Bledsoe, Dr. Paula Pendergrass, Bev Wallen, Cassie Norton, and Mary Jo Cram. Welcome to the Tennessee House Agricultural Subcommittee. Thank you for being here, and thank you for the amazing work you do in our public schools for our students in Tennessee. Thank you all for being here.
Yeah. Are there any other personal orders? Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I would like for you and the rest of the committee to help make me welcome one of my not only constituents, but one of the members of our church and also the leader and president of the NAACP state chair of the NAACP, Ms. Gloria Sweetlove, who's with us this morning. You'd help us make her welcome.
Good to have you here. Representative Jones.
And I just had a parliamentary inquiry since the chairman told me to remove my pin saying no school choice vouchers. One of the other members of this committee has on a political pin of the Israel flag. Representative Todd has the Israel flag pin on, which is obviously a political statement referencing the war in Gaza and Israel right now. And I will ask if the rules will be applied consistently to all members of this committee, if he'll be able to keep his pin on, or will I be able to put my pin back on? Just wanted to get clarification for consistent application of House rules.
Representative Jones, I believe you asked to be called upon. He has not raised his hand to be called upon. And we will talk with the clerk if there's an issue in that manner. Is that fair? Okay, thank you. I'm going to take a matter of privilege this morning as well. Several of you know Mr. Stephen Maupin, who served with the Farm Bureau for many years. His wife and daughter were in a car accident yesterday afternoon, and they were turning into their driveway, and a guy come around the curve pretty fast, and it hit his wife and daughter. His daughter was flown to the med in Memphis, but she has been released this morning. So that's good news. His wife was, I think it broke her sternum and maybe a collarbone. Anyhow, they had a significant crash yesterday afternoon. But the boy that hit him, the young man, I believe he's 23 years old, 24 years old, and he lost his life. And his wife was pregnant with 6 weeks or 6 months. So y'all pray for that family and Mr. Maupin's family as they try to recover over the next few days. With that, Tyler, do you have any wisdom for us or encouragement for us?
Good morning, everyone. Today's words of wisdom are brought to you by the greatest neighbor of all time, Mr. Rogers. There is no normal life that is free of pain. It's the very wrestling with our problems that can be the impetus for our growth. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you, Tyler. All right. Well, seeing that there's no other personal orders, we have a couple of housekeeping items that we need to take care of. One right off the bat, and the item number 2, House Bill 1451 has been taken off notice, so without objection, off notice. Item number 5, House Bill 2620 has been taken off notice, so without objection, off notice. And item number 6, House Bill 1255 has been taken off notice, so without objection, off notice. That brings us to item 1 on our calendar. Chairman Howell, you are recognized on House Bill 1946 with a motion and a second, so you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill, House Bill 1946, was brought to me by the Ocoee River Outfitters Association. The Ocoee River is part of the state parks system, which is governed by TDEC, as you know, and TDEC is deferred on this bill. A little history. In 2017, the legislature created the Ocoee River Regional Economic Development Board. Its primary purpose, not its only purpose, but the primary purpose is to attempt to grow the economy in that very rural and somewhat economically depressed area of Tennessee. And this bill only impacts the Ocoee River, and that's where the whitewater rafting takes place. A majority of it in the state of Tennessee is taking place just up the road from my house where I live. The Outfitters Association asked me to bring the bill since I'm not only their state representative, but I also chair that Economic Development Board that I mentioned earlier. What this bill does is four things. It allows the board to negotiate and pay TVA for additional days of whitewater release on the Ocoee recreation area. And the reason for that is because the Ocoee, unfortunately, is the only river we have to pay for water usage. That is an act of Congress. It would take an act of Congress to change it. It caps the amount of outfitter permits issued by the state parks, which manages the Ocoee State Parks, and that cap has already been established by the U.S. Forest Service. The Ocoee runs through the Cherokee National Forest, and they have capped it at 4,250 rafters per day. So this just codifies it in case someone, an outfitter, decides they want to thumb their nose at the Forest Service. We have it in state code that you have broken the law. It recognizes the Ocoee as an Olympic river under the state's Scenic River Act. That's where the 1996 Olympic venue was held for whitewater rafting. So it is an Olympic river. And then it, lastly, a big one, it allows the outfitter with a permit who wishes to retire or to sell his outfitting business to do so, and to also transfer that permit, which has monetary value. So that's what the bill does, those four things. I'd be glad to take any questions.
Chairman Howell, I believe we have an amendment that you need to put on this bill. Is that correct? There's actually two amendments, but which one would you like to put on there?
I need to look at that, Chairman. Thank you for reminding me. I believe the amendment makes the bill. I have a stack of papers here.
It's my understanding that it would probably, that House Amendment 15522.
That's the one I have, sir.
Okay. We have a motion on the amendment. We have a second on the amendment. Is there any objection to putting the amendment on the bill? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? The amendment has been put on the bill. Chairman Howell?
The amendment makes the bill.
The
as I
amendment
just
makes the bill?
described.
Okay.
Yes,
The description that you gave
that makes the bill.
was the descriptive of the, okay.
Yeah.
Representative Reedy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Howe, tell us again, as far as the transaction for a buying and selling of a business?
Chairman Howell?
Well, unfortunately, in times past, if this bill passes, it will be the first time that a owner of a business would be able to transfer that permit to an heir, for example. They're not able to do that now under current law. Or if they wanted to sell it, like if somebody owned a hardware store, they could sell that store and obtain a business license. This will allow the whitewater outfitters to do the exact same thing.
See any other questions? Question's been called on the bill. Without objection, we'll be voting on House Bill 1946 as amended. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. On the
Thank you,
floor.
Mr. Chairman. And
Representative Travis, for what purpose?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know I'm out of order, but I have some good friends with me today from Bledsoe County, the Lloyd family sitting right back here. If you will stand up or wave, and let's make them welcome. Thank you, Chairman.
I'm just happy to know you've got good friends. Yes, sir, you're recognized.
I said they were my friends. They hadn't said they friended me yet.
I love it. All right. Since we've, number 2 is taken off notice, House Bill number 3, or item number 3, House Bill 1011 by Chairman Haston. We have a motion and a second. You're properly before the committee.
Thank you. Now,
There is an amendment on this bill, I do
Yep.
believe.
15524. And it does make the bill.
15524. All right. Is any objection to putting the amendment on the bill? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? The amendment has been put on the bill. You can explain your bill as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Committee. TDEC has grants which come from their local parks and recreation fund. These grants are usually a 50-50 state-local match. This bill would simply allow distressed counties to apply for these grants with a 90-10 state-local match. With that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Now, I do believe that our state has less distressed counties now than we did 5 years ago. Is that correct? Yes, sir.
Thank you. Yes, I think we were at 14 when we first came in. You and I came in 5 years ago now, and we are down to 8. One of those 8 is still in my district, and this came from one of my county commissioners in that district to help them to be able to access some funds for some recreational improvements.
Okay. I too have one of those distressed counties, Lake County, and it'd be very, very beneficial to them. Chairman Reedy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Haston, is that Perry County?
That's correct.
Yeah, you've got some tough times down there. So yeah, I look forward to voting yes on this bill. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, then we'll be voting on House Bill 1011 as amended. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Yeah, the ayes have it on the full.
Thank you,
Thank you, Chairman
Chairman.
Haston. House Bill 1945 by Chairman Carr, item number 4. We have a motion and we have a second. You are properly before the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of my best bills here today, but anyway, the amendment does make the bill. I have an amendment code of 14507.
I do not have that. Give us just a second. We'll see what's going on here. Okay. They're looking for what'd you say that number was?
14507.
We're not seeing an amendment.
Well, you better, no,
Do what?
well, the amendment, we could go back to the original bill. Do you have a 11454? Is that what you have?
11454. That is the original bill. Yes, sir. I have
Okay,
that.
thank you. We could go back to the original bill, but all the amendment, if I may, I'm
Please,
sorry.
you're recognized.
The
You're recognized
other-
on the bill.
Okay, on the bill, this bill here, basically what we're going to do, we're going to ask that the Department of Agriculture list all the vaccines that are approved for use in livestock and poultry and tell whether they've been generically engineered or not generically engineered. And if I may have just a brief explanation, Mr. Chairman, all the other amendment did was just tell you what was considered to be genetically engineered, so we could get that later. But anyway, that's what this bill does. It just asks for the Department of Ag to make a list on their website of what are the genetically engineered vaccines and those that are not genetically engineered for our livestock and our poultry. And that's all that it does.
Chairman Todd,
I would ask you, sir, if,
Parliamentary inquiry.
what is your inquiry?
Before the speaker is recognized, just for consistent application rules, he has on a political pin.
He does not.
Where does he? Where's he have it at?
Oh, he took it off.
Yes, I saw
Continue.
that. I saw that before you. Yeah, I did check. Okay, I'm consistent.
and it's, well, I won't even go into that, how
Yes, sir.
ridiculous that is, but thank you for bringing this. This does concern me a little bit in that I think this information is available to the public already in other places. Would that be an accurate statement?
I think that it is, yes, sir, an accurate statement, yes, sir.
I guess I'm concerned, Mr. Chairman, that this is going to put forth something to the public that's going to potentially, I guess, cause some angst, cause some concerns if folks start looking at this from the standpoint of creating a story that's not a story. If we've already got this information out there, the department, I don't even think has the ability with their current staffing to put this together and research all the different vaccines and drugs that are being used for the variety of livestock that we have. I'm concerned about the burden it's going to put on the department to even put this together, first of all, and then what format that's going to be in, if it's going to potentially give some false concerns to folks, because these are already being used, very safely used across the state. And it just concerns me that we're, number one, causing them a lot of trouble, and then potentially putting forth a cloud over things that are commonly used in this the veterinary world.
You're recognized.
Thank you. Well, I understand your concerns, but we just thought if we could get this done and put it on the agricultural website, that it would be easier to take. But I understand what you're saying, but I'm at the will of the committee on that.
Representative Jones.
Thank you. I agree with Representative Todd. I think that this is creating undue work, extra work for the Department of Agriculture. Can I ask, were there people in your district who asked you to bring this, or where did this bill come from?
You're recognized.
Thank you. This bill came from a lady that deals with a lot of farmers and everything, and also with, if I may say so, Senator Nicely on his side. He's had this bill a time or two. So, and he's my senator, so they asked me to carry it. That's the reason I was carrying it, Mr. Representative Jones.
Do the people who, as Representative Todd referenced, they know that you can find this information already? Do they need help with like search engines, Google? Like, is there an issue with trying to figure out how to look it up? Or I'm just trying to understand that this is already available information. So are they just not wanting to go to a certain website and just find it on the Department of Ag because it's available publicly right now? And so it just is creating a whole new database that is unnecessary, and it's kind of like double the work for something that's already existing. And I'm just trying to understand why they don't look at the existing search engines and databases for this.
You're recognized.
Thank you. I think they just wanted to, if you're talking about livestock or poultry or anything, and your mind automatically goes to agriculture, and they were wanting on the agriculture's website, just so that it would be very easy, like you say, on a Google search to find.
Just to add some clarity, the amendment that you were referring to
Yes.
was an amendment that was put on in the Senate. So that amendment that you were referring to was a Senate amendment, I believe. So
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
Okay,
If I
no,
had
that's
it,
fine.
I apologize.
that's fine. All right, Chairman Holsley, you're recognized.
I was just going to say, I've kind of interested me too. What website or where would you go to find out this information on what's genetically altered and what isn't? I mean, that's for anybody. I don't know if it's for him or not.
You're recognized.
Thank you. I don't know exactly that website, Mr. Chairman, on that. I really don't. I mean, I probably into the health or something. I can't say.
Chairman Holsley, who would you like to ask that question to? Chairman Todd.
I would think that's readily available with the manufacturers. Each manufacturer is going to be able to describe exactly how they got to where they are with whatever medicine they're using, whether it's a antibiotic or a vaccine or whatever it might be. They would have to disclose that information. I'm pretty confident. And that's one thing that I was getting at with the department. They're going to have to go and do all of this to be able to compile this, and that's a lot of work. So I don't know if well, it did. Let's see, did it have fiscal note? Well, I don't think it does, but that concerns me because I can only imagine how much work it's going to be to contact every manufacturer of every single drug that would be involved in this. So I think that's what they would have to do.
Thank you. Now, I would assume that the UT Extension would have some type of resources for some of these things. I'm not sure. I don't want to put words in their mouth or assume something, but they do a lot. They deal in this world a lot. Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, somebody has to say it. I think this would be a good summer study program. We need to, maybe we don't know all we need to know, but department could kind of look at this over the summer and see if it fits their schedule or something they'd like to do. So I'd like to make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion for a summer study. We have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Are there any objections? Any questions? Any objection to voting on sending this to a summer study? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Sorry, Chairman Carr.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee. Next time we'll go to the Bahamas or somewhere, okay? Thank you.
We'll go with you. Item number 5 has been taken off notice. We've already dealt with that. Item number 6 has been taken off notice. Item number 7, Representative Martin, you are sitting here with us. So House Bill 2867. Can we get a motion? We have a second.
Thank
We
you,
have a-
Chairman.
We have his motion to second. You are properly before the
Thank
committee.
you much. May I go out of order for a moment, make a
Abs-
personal
absolutely.
recommendation? Today I have Leadership Henderson County with me. I'm actually a member of that group from my district, and they're here today on their day on the Hill. So welcome them to the Capitol. Thank you all for coming out. Thank
Do you
you.
want to brag on your desk mate while they're
I
here?
can brag on my desk mate all day long. The chairman is exceptional. Thank you for what you're doing.
You're recognized on the bill now.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, committee and chairman. What's in a name? If I ever write a book, that's going to be the first chapter of my book based upon my last 2 years in this sector. As some of you might know, there was a man-made lake located outside of Huntington. Back in 2010, Watershed Authority was established from the state agency, and we named it the Carroll County 1,000-acre lake. In 2010, after public input and PR campaign, that name, Carroll County 1,000-acre lake, was chosen. The project was a culmination of a vision that started over 30 years ago from our former county mayor and former state representative, the late Dale Kelly. His dream of a lake for future generations to use became a reality, and the name became something the community could take great pride in. In 2022, as some of you might recall and remember, the state partnered with our local agency to take ownership and take away that debt for our state and for our locals. The Tennessee General Assembly decided at that time to rename it Lake Halford. And after the retiring representative, Curtis Halford, who was a long-serving member of the General Assembly, a long member serving of chairman of the Ag, and played a vital role in helping secure money for that lake. So what's in the name? As you can see, a lot. I credit both these fine men for the reason you see me standing here today. Both have played instrumental roles in my life from a political standpoint as well as professional and personal. They were both great mentors, more importantly, great friends to me. This bill, though, comes from the people of Carroll County. As you have received messages probably from many of my constituents, it's an issue that's near and dear to them all. Many are watching online today, checking in. My job is to be a voice for my district, to be a voice for those individuals. You know, in my short time here, the only real ask I've had from Carroll County, I represent 3, the only one I've had from Carroll County is this name. In fact, when TWRA came to our listening meeting 2 years ago when they were taking over the lake, the only question that kept coming up was about the name of the lake. And I think it's important to realize that this is nothing against the gentleman that we decided to name it after. Mr. Curtis, and I can't say enough about the value that he has brought to our community and the respect that he had for 12 years serving us. He helped pay off generations of debt. Him and Senator Stevens were able to get that accomplished. It made game-changing for our future. So from a local standpoint, it's nothing against that component. It was strictly, as we talked about earlier, the citizens felt like they chose that name and they wished for it to return. The Carroll County 1,000-acre lake is a name that they so chose to wanted to go back to. And Mr. Curtis and I speak often, still almost daily text and calls. And in true Mr. Curtis fashion, kind of what he said one day was, you know, naming that lake was a great honor to me, but I spent 12 years serving that district. And my objective is to make sure there's no hard feelings towards me, although he had nothing to do with it. But he wants to make sure it's just right. If that's what the citizens ask, that's what his will be done as well. So as you can see, what's in a name is a lot on both sides of it. So I humbly ask for support and I stand ready for questions.
Okay, we got a Representative Darby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Representative Martin. The hard work that you've put into this, and I know it was a slippery slope there, trying to juggle everything, but you went over and beyond, and a true representative of Carroll County. And I appreciate it, and I'll be voting in the affirmative.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I do applaud you for the work you've put into this. You came into the General Assembly, certainly was introduced to many of us into the General Assembly by Curtis Halford, which said a lot. That stamp of approval that he had for you said a lot. And I know he nor we have been disappointed at all. You've done a great job the time you've been here. Chairman Halford did a great job for this state and specifically for this lake, for the citizens of Huntington and Carroll County, because as we dealt with this a couple of years ago, it got held up in subcommittee for quite a while. And only at his encouragement did it get out of subcommittee, because it had some issues. There was a lot of things written into the bill to take over the lake, that put some responsibilities on the state, but also we felt like took some rights away from the landowners around there. So we had them go back and recraft and redraft and try to make it as good as we could. I certainly had a personal problem having my constituents specifically help pay for this lake that they really don't see that much benefit for. I mean, this was almost just a county lake that was done for the city of Huntington and Carroll County. And to have my citizens help pay for that was kind of, it gave me some heartburn. And certainly had some pushback on that. But thanks to Chairman Halford, we got the kinks worked out of it, and I swallowed that hard pill of paying for somebody else's lake and said, okay, we can make this work, and got the bill crafted like we did to take eminent domain out and several other things that were issues. But at the last minute, Leader Lambert, as you well know, had an amendment to this bill to rename the lake that in honor of Chairman Halford, who was exiting the legislature at that time, retiring, and I was in full support of that. Now, I will say that Chairman Halford had no idea. I mean, he was literally standing in the well when amendment number 2 was brought up, and he didn't have amendment number 2. It would have been purposefully kept from him. And we surprised him with that, and he didn't want it. He didn't want to go down that road. He was a very humble man, still is. But we felt like it was the right thing to do to honor him for his effort in getting this done, because again, we were relieving the debt of a whole community there. Because I checked with the comptroller's office, we had already, as a state, given the authority, Carroll County Lake Authority, I believe it was $5 million under Governor Haslam as a bailout to get them by for a period of time. But the revenue for this lake was just not there. I don't know where the projections came from, how they got this debt. It just wasn't there, even with the wheel tax. And I think maybe that had expired. I'm not really sure what the local issue was with the wheel tax, but it was hard to swallow adding another $11 million plus on top of the $5 million that the state had, or our taxpayers had already invested. And so for that reason, I was perfectly fine with renaming the lake that under those circumstances, and really feel like, and I know this is not your intention at all, but I really feel like if we make this move, we're literally going to be insulting a former representative that had nothing to do with the naming of this whatsoever. I mean, it's going to appear that way to the public, and that's one of my biggest concerns. And then on a more for my constituent side of this, if the folks of Carroll County want to rename this lake, we'll take a check for $16 million plus interest, and they can name it anything they want to. But my citizens, my constituents, had to fork up the money from their tax dollars to help pay this debt off. And I feel like the General Assembly did the right thing in naming it for Chairman Halford. And I just can't support this bill, even though you've fought very hard for it. You've talked to all of us. You've sent emails, and you've been very diligent doing your job. But I just can't support this. And I do appreciate and respect you greatly for what you've done and how you've worked on this, and how you're answering the call that your community asked you to. But I just can't stand for this. And but I do appreciate your efforts.
Absolutely.
Representative Martin.
Absolutely. Thank you. And as Chairman Todd and I have talked for 2 years about, his stance has not changed, and I greatly appreciate that. My only counter to that portion of it is, especially from the community standpoint, we didn't sign up for the debt either. We signed up for a wheel tax that we were assuming would help pay for this. That didn't happen. So the citizens didn't necessarily fold under that aspect. We were thankful and forever grateful that the state stepped up, though. I spoke to the chamber recently, and I addressed this exact conversation. And then luckily I had the youth leadership over there, and I pointed to them and I said, the big pact is that generation is not having to pay for this debt. And that was my biggest issue and concern. So definitely thank you for that component. And I can't understate enough how impactful Mr. Curtis was and still is to that area. So I understand that concern as well. But
follow up? Yes, just briefly. That was the other part of it you touched on, is the future generations. I understood, and we checked with the comptroller's office, what would happen if we don't do this, we don't pass this bill 2 years ago. And they said, well, within months, they will default. Well, then what happens? City of Huntington is on the hook. They will have to have a massive tax increase to pay for this, or pass it on to the county. And so seeing that, and I talked with folks in the community to try to get a feel for it, and they certainly didn't want a big tax increase to get them out of this debt and to be able to make these payments. And so, understand that we didn't want a subdivision to default, but then it was going to be a significant burden on that community. But I appreciate you mentioning that just to get that on the record too. That was a factor because
Absolutely.
even though they may not have said, we want this debt, they were obligated as citizens of that community, legally obligated to pick that up had we not done this bailout. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman.
You recognize. Rick.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, next on the list, Representative Travis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to sit here and listen to all this, Chairman, that I worked with for 10 years, they got all this done. Super guy. Curtis was a super guy. And your county has sent a great guy up here too, and you. But in everything that's been said, each one of us sit here and do the best for our county. That's what we do. That's our job, not to take recognition for it, but to do the best job. And I know Curtis and you have talked about this, and he really doesn't care. Curtis did it not because he wanted it to be named that way. He did it because he was working for his district. And to me, that's what it's all about. It's not who we are, it's what we do for our district. And that's why we're sent up here to do that. So I too will be voting for your bill. So I appreciate you bringing it.
Thank you, sir.
Recognized.
I appreciate it.
Representative Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill is not about debt or defaulting. This is about a name. And I think one thing I want to say as a member of the minority party is that it's important for us to listen to local communities. That I'm supporting your bill because I believe that the people of Carroll County should be able to determine what they want to name things in their district. And when it comes to Nashville, I hope that you respect the autonomy of my community, because it is wrong that Republican Majority Leader William Lamberth filed an amendment to name this lake a different name for a county he does not live in without consulting the people of that district, without consulting the constituents of Carroll County, a county that he does not live in nor represents. And too often up here, we see people who force their will on other communities. Even something as simple as a name change shows a deeper illness that's happening in this building, where people who don't live in counties are telling counties, this is what's in your best interest. We're going to change the name of a lake for somewhere we're never going to go and we don't even live in. That is wrong. And so I support this bill because I believe that we should consult with local communities of all issues. I had a bill in this body to restore the name of the tallest mountain in the Smoky Mountains, because you said names are important, which is called Klingman's Dome. The Cherokee name is Kuohi. The tribe has asked us to restore that name, and I'm also supporting that because names are important. Names connect us to place. Names are the process by which your constituents came together and collectively said, we want a lake. And they came through a process. We're going to name this lake this name because it has a meaning for our community. And this body, irrespective of that decision, said we know what's best for the people of Carroll County. We're going to strip that name and name it after someone who's a lawmaker, because we believe that up here, that's who only we should honor. But the people want to name this the 1,000-acre lake. I support it, and I hope that we continue to listen to local communities going forward.
Thank you, Representative Jones.
Chairman Hosey.
Thank you. Chairman Todd expressed most of my views. What's in the name is $16 million. My cohort from Nashville, this is not just a decision for your community. There's $16 million invested from taxpayers. So I do appreciate your effort.
Yes, sir. Thank you,
You
Chairman.
recognize. Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Representative Martin. I appreciate you. You and I have done well since we've been here, created quite a friendship. But I will tell you, you got a long way to go before you get to Curtis Health. One of my best friends, for me, this is friendship. This has nothing to do with anything but friendship. And if I ever had a friend in the legislature, it was Curtis Halford. I appreciate you bringing the bill. Yeah, we do represent our communities, and we have to do that. I appreciate all that. But the only way I could vote to take Curtis's Halford name off that lake is if he stood in that well and told me, I want you to take it off. Otherwise, I could never vote for this bill, because we have a friendship that goes far beyond anything else. So I appreciate you bringing the bill, but I can't support that.
Thank
Thank you,
Representative Shaw.
Representative Shaw. And I can attest to all those conversations about Mr. Curtis, as fine of a man as you'll find. So that's exactly why this is such a hard conversation, obviously. And we appreciate that. And relationships are all that matter up here. We talk about that all the time. And I thank you for that.
I haven't had a chance to say anything good about Curtis Halford in a couple of years, but there's not anything bad to say. But I too want to agree with everyone else and the different things they've talked about and how he was a gentleman of gentlemen. And I do appreciate the character he displayed on a regular basis around here. That's exhausted our list. Seeing that there are no other individuals on the list, the question's been called on the bill. We'll be voting on sending House Bill 2867 to full. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no.
No.
Noes have it. Representative Martin.
Thank you, committee
Thank
and
you
chair.
for your efforts. Next on the list, we have House Bill 2938, item number 8. It has been taken off notice, is my understanding, by Representative Travis. Is that correct?
Yes, Chairman, thank you so much.
All right, House Bill 2938, off notice. Now we are at item number 9. House Bill 2038 by Representative Fritz. You are recognized with a motion and a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You do have an amendment?
I do. I was going to request we roll that one space, and I can talk them in the other order if that would be okay with chairman and committee.
The amendment or the bill?
The bill.
Okay. Does anybody have an objection to withdrawing their motion and second? There was a motion and a second on the bill. The motion and second has been withdrawn. We're going to roll item number 9 one space. That brings us to item number 10. We have a motion and a second on item number 10, House Bill 2118 by Representative Fritz. You are now recognized on House Bill 2118.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. Thank you for your patience. And
There's 2 amendments on this bill, but we can only take up one.
Yes, sir. I'm going to ask you to take up 14809, please.
Okay. We have a motion and a second on the amendment 14809. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment has been put on the bill. And the reason we can't take up the other amendment is because the member that filed the amendment is not on this committee, and no one on this committee filed that amendment. So therefore, we have to take that up at a different time. You are recognized on the bill as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to address the other amendment, I'll work with Chairman Reagan if that's something that still needs to be done. It was a GovOps type thing that had prompted that. So we'll make sure it gets added before full committee. It's a very minor change to just catch things if that be the case.
Thank you.
So Chairman and committee, why we need this bill and what the bill does. In 2017, the General Assembly created the State Energy Policy Council to advise and make recommendations to the governor and to the General Assembly on how to ensure a stable, secure, and more predictable energy supply, and to manage uses of energy, and to increase energy exploration, development, and production within our state. In May of 2023, Governor Lee issued Executive Order 101. This executive order established the Nuclear Energy Advisory Council. We approved $50 million for that last year. A great function of that council was to ensure nuclear supply chain is supported and healthy in the state of Tennessee. Executive Order 101 also took a look at regulatory, workforce, and educational barriers and that exist to the creation and expansion of nuclear energy facilities in Tennessee. That executive order is planned to expire on November 1 of this year. One thing I want to make really clear, this bill does not in any way require the governor not to extend his Energy Council if he decides to. It's meant to be harmonious with that. As a matter of fact, I have taken in this bill the current legislation that established the Energy Policy Advisory Council and attempted to hybridize that with what the governor's Executive Order 101 would be. There are 21 voting positions, if you read through this bill, on this council, and they're configured to be representatives of all the energy stakeholders in our state, ranging from energy producers and suppliers to energy users, including small business, residential, and agriculture users. The one non-voting member will be a representative of the U.S. Department of Energy, NNSA, or other federal partner in Oak Ridge. Why is this needed after all that? Earlier this year, the committee allowed me to present House Joint Resolution 119 last year, 119. And it established a resolution that we're going to have an energy policy in the state of Tennessee. I would offer to my colleagues here on this committee that it is often the case in these United States that political strategies drive our energy decisions. And this is an attempt for us in the state of Tennessee to have an energy strategy that will drive informed political decisions. It's simply that. And I think by this restructuring of this, or hybridizing of this council, we enable a group of people to help us do that. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll stop and take any questions y'all may have.
Representative Reedy, you're first on the list, but before we do, Representative Fritz, I'm going to ask you to remove the pen that is not the General Assembly pen.
Oh,
I am sorry that I should have started it off with that. Thank you.
sure.
Representative Reedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Representative Fritz, I appreciate you bringing this, and I'll give a little to this committee a little back history. And of course, I remember our caucus retreat at Paris Landing, and we're drinking coffee early morning, being soldiers. At one time wearing the same uniform, watching the sun come up. For those listening or those that are here, if you have not seen the sun come up over Kentucky Lake, you need to do so. But that's where I appreciate this representative serving our state as well as our nation. And it was interesting, the conversation we had about Oak Ridge Laboratories. And of course, I was elected to office in 2014. And shortly thereafter, I discovered the research that was being done at Oak Ridge Laboratories back in the 60s. And I brought forward House Joint Resolution 507 for those that are interested in it, but was talking about molten salt reactors, the research that the state of Tennessee and Oak Ridge Laboratories had done on this new idea for nuclear reactors that are very safe, that is operated by thorium, which is very prevalent across our western states. And matter of fact, I come to find out that Hyperion X in my district in Benton County, Henry County, will be doing mining of titanium and finding out low-grade uranium and thorium is going to be available. And these reactors will actually take and burn up the waste off of our current nuclear energy sources, which it's been disposed of in Paducah, Kentucky. And it's like, what a way to get rid of it. So in this urging resolution, taking it to the Governor Haslam at that time and saying, hey, here's this technology, born and bred in the state of Tennessee. And then they locked it away after that research for several weeks, showing it was viable energy. We locked it away. And this is what kind of disgusts me, is when we finally took the top secret information off of it, the energy company sent all of that to China for research, saying it's our technology. For medical isotopes, where we reach across the ocean to get those in the medical field, we could develop them ourselves in the state of Tennessee. So I'm excited about the legislation you're bringing. What a great concept. And at times we find out new members that get elected to this body brings new eyes, new perspective on what we should be doing. And this is great. I'm excited. Thank you, Representative Fritz.
You're recognized.
Thank you, Representative. I appreciate all the kind words. I've just been blessed to get to work in some things, and certainly had my fifth grade teacher in a spelling bee asked me to spell uranium, I would have probably had to go sit down. But by God's grace, now He's blessed this land. I have learned over the years a little bit about our fissile materials, and you'll see a heavy influence in this bill. And I apologize if I offended anybody with the pen. It was just a UT nuclear energy pen. I thought it was apropos for today, but I understand. You'll see a heavy leaning in this committee toward nuclear energy, because I think that's where we're headed. I really do. I think for clean, renewable energy into the future for our kids and our grandkids, I think it's going to be things like the molten salt reactors. I think it's going to be things like the small modular and micro modular reactors that are in planning, technologies that have been in place for decades, that the application for commercial use is somewhat new to us. In my own district, we have many of these companies coming in to develop the systems. You mentioned molten salt reactors. Kairos Energy, a company from California, is located there in Oak Ridge in Roane County. and they're developing, and to their credit, a molten salt reactor. They're actually ahead of schedule for the test reactor. They plan to go critical and reach K effective of 1 by 2026, end of 2026, which is a huge thing. That becomes a heat source. I have learned that it's all about boiling water to make electricity, because we all like that electricity. I don't want to geek out on you all. Some of that stuff that I know, I'll try to pull back on that some. But we have tried to put a reliance here, and we've done some things that I think are important in this committee. From Representative Travis area down into the Chattanooga area, we're nuclear strong in East Tennessee. Based on what the East Tennessee Economic Council has shown me lately, there are about 225 sites in the state of Tennessee that do some type of nuclear work. 175 of them are in the Oak Ridge, Knoxville area. So we have places in West and Middle Tennessee that help with that nuclear supply chain. I think that's the brilliance of what the governor did and what we supported with the $50 million last year. I think as you look through these, we will see that we have folks from Ray County and Hamilton County that need to be on as a part of this, government leaders. Certainly those in Oak Ridge, Roane, Anderson County as well. And there's probably some ways to improve that some. But those communities, as we've discussed, having some influence from the community on how we do things, I think those are important, along with those criticality safety and radiological engineers that would be a part of this council as well, for the vision that I have for it. So thank you again. And sorry.
Representative Travis.
Well, like we talk, and when we talk, and Representative, I appreciate you bringing this, because my home sits 10 air miles from Sequoia and 10 air miles from Watts Bar. So I am close to 2 nuclear plants that are very active. So thank you for bringing this in the work that you put into this is remarkable. And I will be voting for your bill. Is there anything about Asian carp in there? No, I'm sorry. I am so sorry. I keep call question on the bill now.
You're recognized. Question's been called on the bill. Thank you. All right. Any objection? All in favor of sending House Bill 2118 to full committee, say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. We are moving to the heel of the calendar, which is item 9. Yes, Mr. Representative Shaw, you're recognized.
I know that I'm out of order, but I just had some more guests come in that
Recognize them.
join the president of the NAACP, our educational committee. I got Miss Marjorie Voss, who is an educator, retired. I think she's retired. Marjorie, if you raise your hand, and it's Miss Yvonne Turner over there on the side. She's also on the NAACP Education Committee. And thank you all for being here. And again, these are my not only constituents, but members of our church, and I appreciate them being here. And I think they see now that I really do work. Thank you.
Don't believe everything you see. You're recognized with we have a motion and a second on item number 9. That's House Bill 2038. Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. Again, there is an amendment 14922.
We have a motion and a second on 14922. All in favor of putting the amendment on the bill, say aye. Any opposed? The amendment has been put on the bill. You're recognized on the amended bill.
Thank you,
Bill
Mr.
as
Chairman.
amended, however you want to say it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll speak as quickly as possible on this one. What this bill does is simply the next step in what we just discussed. And it establishes a tasking for the State Energy Policy Advisory Council to do several things. It establishes deliverables that the State Council develop, document, update, and maintain a Tennessee energy policy, which must establish a vision for all types of energy production. To commission studies as needed for natural gas demand, signal forecasting, current infrastructure capacities, and recommendations on where we, as a state, need to make investments in infrastructure to meet both natural gas demand as well as supplemental natural gas demands as related to peak and supplemental, to use that word twice, supplemental electricity production. Developing a bridging strategy that addresses our need to meet our energy demand over the next 10 years. Develop outage risk reduction strategies, outline strategic changes in managing our fuel supply, which has become a just-in-time fuel supply, or is becoming so. And I'll stop there for just a minute and talk through that. No one, to my understanding, has attempted to create a just-in-time supply chain for fuel for our energy production, but it has resulted that way. To quote one of the fellows from TVA leadership, Mr. Hoagland, he said, in many cases, we've went from a many months supply of fuel, perhaps at a Kingston steam plant, to a minute's supply of natural gas. And so natural gas burns cleaner. We have natural gas, and we want to be able to certainly utilize that to bridge us into this nuclear future, which is, again, the bridging strategy portion of that. But it's important as we develop our strategy to understand what that's done to the fuel supply. You know, if you look at Toyota or Honda or any of the American manufacturers, they've all gone to some version of a just-in-time supply for their parts and materials coming into their manufacturing processes. This has become it happened thing with our energy supply, and we need to understand that, and that needs to be part of our policy understanding. Listing the existing opportunities is another task, and challenges, and leveraging those opportunities in our current structure. Improving our energy forecasting capabilities is tremendously important for us. And then to use those things that we just discussed, and develop a framework of imperatives in this structure. Those things that we absolutely are musts in our energy strategy and in developing a strategic thought toward what we do with energy in the state of Tennessee. And that's both generation, use, all areas, because I certainly do think, colleagues, this is a time for us to be all hands on deck in how we supply our energy and all of the above approach, from the renewables, the wind, the solar, the batteries, the storage, the natural gas. And again, as Representative mentioned about some of the technologies that we're bringing online, the nuclear, that's probably going to be the long-term answer for us. And this should help equip us, the legislator, for recommendations for needed legislation and how we shift this thing to make sure that we have a steady supply of electricity and natural gas and all other energy sources. I'll make one other statement. I'll stop on this and take any questions that you all may have. The focus of this tasking is on electricity supply and how we might do peak shaving methods within our generation of electricity and in natural gas. And you'll see that there is a fiscal note with this. I think the total, when you flip over, you'll see $617,000. $400,000 of that fiscal note is to commission a natural gas study. As we develop a higher reliance on natural gas to produce electricity, we're competing for the gas that we use in our homes. And I think that's going to require, based on what I've learned in this process so far, some additional natural gas routing throughout the state. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll stop and take any questions that you may have about this.
Do we have any questions for Representative Fritz? Representative Reedy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And of course, I look forward to it, and to let the committee members know, these will be going towards government operations. And of course, we as elected members, both here in the House as well as the Senate, we'll have oversight of this to make sure it doesn't run out of control. But it is absolutely necessary that we continue the conversation. That's what I found out years ago. This conversation is worth having, because of a lot of our foundries and metal works cannot be operated by wind and solar. That if it's not coal-fired furnaces, nuclear clean energy is the way of the future of these United States. But we've got to look at the automotive industry and the amount of metal works that we do in this state. And I'm tickled to represent the state of Tennessee, and we're on track, just the economic booms for our nation that we will share with the states surrounding us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Halsey?
And I was just going to ask you, in your best guess, fulfilling the needs of natural gas, we're going to have to bring in another source. Do you know if that'll come out of southern states or as far away as Arkansas or East Texas? Do you have any idea on that?
You recognize?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and a great question. I haven't went that far with trying to determine. I think the commission, that's the study that we're commissioning, will actually answer some of those questions, Representative Halsey, and get us to a point so that we can make good decisions about those. As you all recall, 2 years ago, we're fortunate to have TVA. And there, as you noticed in the previous bill, they're a key partner in playing this, in developing this energy strategy. But we have seen such a growth in this area, to the comments made, that I don't think any of us would have forecast that between 2010 and 2020, we would see a 9% growth, residential growth in the state of Tennessee. And so that's made some of our capacity shortfall in what we need. It's resulted, unfortunately, in just one time, but in those rolling brownouts that we experience. And what we don't want to happen, and part of what we're requesting here in this bridging strategy, is to get us to those molten salt and small modular reactors for baseload capability and producing electricity, so that we don't have those type perturbations in the system, and we can keep both the residential and industrial and agricultural economies growing. So the quick answer to your question, I don't know that, but I think this study will help us ascertain that.
Thank you, Representative Fritz. Thank you, Representative Hosley. I was out of town this weekend and saw some different people from across the country. And whenever they find out that you're from Tennessee, they're amazed at what we're able to do here. And I guess we take it for granted how awesome Tennessee is because we live here and don't, whenever you don't have the freedoms that we have here in Tennessee, whenever you don't have the cost of living that we have here in Tennessee, if you move from California, that place is shrinking. You move from New York, that place is shrinking. But yet Tennessee is continuing to grow because why? We do things right here. And once again, Tennessee is leading the nation, and I'm proud to say I'm a Tennessean. With that, anybody else have any other questions? Seeing none, we'll be voting on sending House Bill 2038 as amended to full committee. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. I wanted to, you're welcome. I wanted to reference one thing. We brought up House Rule 35, and I just wanted everyone to understand what the House Rule 35 meant and said. In no time shall a member enter the House chamber or any other committee room of the General Assembly with props or personal displays of any kind that may be used as a visual aid for the advocacy of or in opposition to any legislation or political message whatsoever. Just trying to play by the rules that the House has set. With that being said, we are adjourned until next week.